Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Poydras podcast, sponsored by Desi Vegas Steakhouse on the world-famous St. Charles Avenue in New Orleans. I'm Corey Rholdon.
And I'm Thomas Cothran.
Saints got a big win on Sunday, a defensive battle on Sunday Night Football at home to improve to 3-1. The Saints won by the score of 12-10, but Thomas, I made a bet. The Saints won. That means I have to wear two gloves in honor of Teddy Two Gloves. So, Thomas, what were your big takeaways on the Saints' victory against the Cowboys?
My big three takeaways from this victory against the Cowboys would be the defensive line and their dominance to stop the run week in and week out. And then the secondary, they stepped up. Marshawn Lattimore had an excellent performance covering Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the NFL. Von Bell, his ability to be around the ball at all times. And then Will Lutz's consistency week in and week out.
Dude, you talked about that defensive line. What an outstanding performance. Ezekiel Elliott had 18 carries for 35 yards. That's less than 2 yards per carry. And David Amawada stepped up huge. He had a big sack with 2 minutes to go there. And also Sheldon Rankings coming back. Just his presence. It's a guy that last year had 8 sacks, should have been a Pro Bowler, but he tore his Achilles against the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think it's an outstanding, just how soon he comes back from Achilles injury. You talked about Marshawn Lattimore. What a performance from Lattimore.
Huge.
He was leading the NFL in yards giving up starting last week, and he comes out and he just absolutely locks down on Amari Cooper. Von Bell has had 3 fumble recoveries in the last 2 weeks. He's improved not only as his run defense, but his pass defense as well. Just the Saints defense as a whole did really well. What were your takeaways, though, from the Saints offense?
From the Saints offensive perspective, I feel like the Saints have definitely gotten more comfortable. They've gotten Teddy Bridgewater a feel for the game. These games actually matter now, unlike the game last year against the Carolina Panthers late in the season.
Yeah.
The playoffs were already guaranteed.
All the starters are out.
Yeah, and so now he feels more comfortable. Quick passes have gotten Teddy Bridgewater very comfortable in the offense. You saw him find his favorite receiver and Drew's favorite receiver in Michael Thomas,
who had 9 catches.
And then there was a balance from Alvin Kamara getting his carries in, and then Bridgewater definitely found receivers time and time again when he needed to.
Yeah, he did his job. You could say about Teddy Bridgewater all you want, what you ever think about him, but he's 2-0 as a starter.
Yeah.
He went on the road versus the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's 3-1, made the playoffs last year in a tough environment, and beat them. Then he plays the Dallas Cowboys, who are undefeated and looked absolutely amazing before this game, and defeated them. He did his job. He did just enough. But Teddy, as you're going to see on Look at the Details, you're going to see that sometimes he holds the ball a little bit too long, as we talked about in weeks prior, and that he plays the game a little bit too safe, that he needs to start making some of these throws.
And trusting himself.
Yes, trusting himself and trusting the system. But he has played well enough to win these games. Let's talk about the offensive line.
Well, the offensive line continues to struggle week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a good job blocking, but the penalties are continuing to kill this team. In order for this team to be a championship caliber team, the penalties have to slow down. They are top 5 in the NFL in penalties, and that has to stop.
They're second in holding calls in the NFL as well. The guard play has not been good. Andres Pete and Larry Wolford has struggled. And, the Saints brought in Nick Easton from the Minnesota Vikings, paid him a pretty good salary to come in and maybe compete with Andres Pete for that guard position. He's not even active. That's probably the most disappointing thing to me, is that the guy who maybe would take Andres Pete or Larry Wolford's job is not even good enough to be on the active roster. But I'll tell you who is good enough. Ramczyk is the best tackle in the game.
He's holding people in check week in and week out. Just J.J. Watt, DeMarcus Lawrence, just dominating.
Clowney. I mean, each week he's absolutely dominating his performance.
And not to mention the first time winning a game without a touchdown since 1998.
First time not having Drew Brees or winning a game without Drew Brees as your starting quarterback in the Superdome since 2004. Just throwing out some of the stats at you right there on the Poydras Street podcast. We're going to take a quick break right now as the Poydras Street podcast will continue in a moment. Welcome back. Now it's time for our interview of the week. This week I interviewed Fox 8 reporter and Saints insider Sean Fazende.
We now have Sean Fazende from the West Bank on the line from Fox 8 New Orleans. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. So, Sean, what did you think about the Saints defense on Sunday night? They had their best game of the year so far. Just tell me your thoughts.
A masterful effort, a masterful game plan, masterful execution at all three levels, really. The front, the linebackers, of course, the secondary, all played a role, and they needed every bit of it because, as we saw, that became kind of a defensive slugfest. So one of those games where you needed big plays defensively and special teams. The Saints were able to get it. And I just thought it was a masterful effort. And I just thought we learned just how strong this defensive line can be with a fully healthy Sheldon Rankins and then the rest of the guys up front. I mean, that's a formidable front. And you're going to win a lot of football games when you have that strong of a defensive line.
It's kind of crazy that Sheldon Rankins came back that quick, especially coming off of an Achilles injury. What did he mean to the defense last year, and what is he going to mean going forward?
Well, he was the pass rusher last year opposite Cam Jordan that the Saints needed. It just didn't come off the edge. It came from the interior. He had 8 sacks. He had his best year by far last year. And bringing him in only adds to that defensive line because Marcus Davenport has improved. Trey Hendrickson has certainly improved. So by having him, you have an interior pass rush, and you have a guy like David Onyemata, who's, in my opinion, the most underrated player on the team. Malcolm Brown is not getting his just due. So you have a situation where you just add another talented player, which adds depth, which adds another body to the rotation, and really just adds just more of a, for lack of a better word, dominance to the front four.
Von Bell's having a really good year as well. He's improved a lot since his rookie season. Can you talk about him and what you've seen out of him?
I thought he massively improved last year, and I think that's carried over this year. He seems to have a nose for the football now with 3 fumble recoveries in 2 games. Sometimes that's luck, but sometimes, luck favors the guy that works hard. So he's certainly worked on his game. He's improved. I think he's the guy that if you would have asked me after his rookie year and into his second year, would he be, I would have told you he was sort of the weak link on the secondary. Now I think he's one of the stronger players in that secondary, and he's really grown, and I think the Saints defense is certainly better for it. So I just think he's one of a few players that has really elevated their game over the course of their time since they've been in New Orleans.
So, Sean, now we got to talk about the Saints offense. Teddy Bridgewater managed the game. He didn't make a lot of mistakes except the 1 interception and a sack at the end of the game. Can you talk about what you saw to Teddy?
Okay. Teddy Bridgewater, always an interesting topic. I went back and watched every throw on the old 22. I always seem to come away with the same feeling about Teddy Bridgewater. Pretty good, solid, nothing spectacular, nothing terrible either. So I thought Teddy Bridgewater managed the game well. I thought he went out of his way to protect the football, which is certainly a good quality to have. But I'll also say this. He left some plays on the field that weren't necessarily risky type throws that could have helped this offense. There were quite a few where the plays were there to make, and he didn't deliver because he kind of had it in his head to protect the football. So I'll say this. From a managing the game plan standpoint, I think he's executing that. From a protecting the football standpoint, I think he's obviously doing that well. I'm very curious to see at what point do they get into his head and say, hey, look, we love that you're protecting the football, but there's also plays that you're missing because you're so guarded against protecting the football. So right now it hasn't caught up to him because they've won, but I do think there's going to come a game where he's going to have to make a play or two for the Saints to get a victory.
So the Saints' offensive line has struggled a little bit this year. What is the reasons for that?
This is really each player individually has to look at themselves and just say, I'm playing sloppy. I mean, it's really what it all boils down to. It's really a matter of just technique and just focus. You could maybe, use the excuse of, Teddy Bridgewater in, new quarterback, new cadence, what have you. But now you're 3 games into this with Teddy Bridgewater, 2.5. So that excuse kind of goes out the water. And frankly, when you have a quarterback that's new and that's still trying to find his way a little bit, he needs that offensive line to lean on a little bit to be successful. And they're doing the opposite. With these penalties, I mean, they're crushing any hopes of any kind of drives. They're killing promising drives on the back end, having them forced, settle for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. So offensive line He's got to look themselves in the mirror man to man and just say, I've got to play better because the technique is poor and they're just getting sloppy. I haven't seen this bad of a run of Larry Warford since he's been here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just single him out, but it just feels like he's been called a lot. He just seems to be out of position a lot. So I just think offensive line, they can play better. That is a talented offensive line. It's not showing it right now.
All right, now we got to go on to Tampa Bay. So the Bucs are a weird team, right? So they go on the road to Carolina and they beat the Panthers. Then they lose at home to the Giants, their rookie quarterback. Then they go on the road to the defending NFC champions and put 55 on the Rams. What are your thoughts on the Bucs?
Look, weird is the way to describe them. Unpredictable. They seem to ride the up and down nature of their quarterback, don't they? I mean,
yeah.
Jameis Winston's the guy that can throw 404 touchdowns, but he's also the guy that's going to give you a gift where he just throws it up for you for a defender to pick six it, like he did with Marcus Peters against the Rams. So I do know this game. I don't think they ever took it lightly because it's Tampa and it's always a weird game. Just check the history. But I also know that now, if fans thought it was going to be easy, I think they know that's not going to be the case. When you put 55 on LA, a team that gave the Saints a whole lot of trouble, certainly that raises eyebrows around the NFL. And it feels like Winston is really connected with this new system that he's running with Bruce Arians, and I think it was Byron Leftwich calling the plays. So it's going to be a tough game. It's an NFC South game. And make no mistake about it, the Bucs should be 3-1. So this should be a battle of 3-1, two 3-1 teams. So it should be a good one inside the Superdome. I know there's crazy things seem to happen when these two teams meet.
What is one matchup you're looking forward to watching? Is it going to be Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans or another matchup?
No, I think that's it. But look, they've got two receivers and two tight ends that can kill you. So I think the secondary and linebackers are going to be tested. You talk about Godwin, you talk about Evans, you talk about Brate, you talk about O.J. Howard. They got a kind of a two-headed monster at running back, decent offensive line. So I do think the Saints secondary versus their pass catches is huge. And also this guy Shaquille Barrett kind of come from out of nowhere on the opposite side of the ball, on the other side of the ball. And whoever has him, and I went through his tape yesterday, this is no fluke. This guy's got pass rush moves, spin moves, set up power move, split and double teams. So the offensive line's got to get their act together because they got the leading sack artist in the NFL coming. So that's got to be a matchup to watch as well.
On the offensive side of the ball, who needs to step up and start making plays for the Saints? Is it Jared Cook or Latavius Murray? Who needs to have a big game for the Saints to win on Sunday?
Yeah, look, I don't know that I had a huge expectation for Latavius Murray other than more of a complimentary type back to Alvin Kamara. So to me, it's got to be Jared Cook. I mean, he was brought in to be a dynamic playmaker, and right now he hasn't even been average. I mean, he hasn't even been a complimentary piece to this offense. I mean, right now you could say Josh Hill's outplayed him at tight end, and Josh Hill's a different kind of tight end. So I think what they brought him in for, he needs to eventually become. And when I say eventually, I mean like starting now, because he's in a funk. He's not been the playmaker that they thought he was going to be. So to me, offensively, it's got to be Jared Cook, because if he all of a sudden emerges, you're talking about a formidable offense, even with Teddy Bridgewater and not Drew Brees, because they have another person the defense has to respect. So I'm going to go with Jared Cook on that one.
All right, Sean, what's your game prediction?
Yeah, I'm not going to go against the Saints, especially after my confidence level last week was about a 5 against the Cowboys. I knew how talented the Cowboys were. So back home, first noon game of the season, NFC Saints slow, even though they're playing pretty well. I got to go with the Saints here because, you know, they kind of developed this rugged edge to them, and I kind of like it, that they're not afraid to win in different ways, and they certainly looks like they feel comfortable doing that. So I'm going to go with the Saints. Probably a few more points, maybe say 24-21 over the Bucs.
Any broken fire alarms this year?
Have we? Fire alarms? Is that what you said?
Yeah, fire alarms. When Sean Payton last year broke a fire alarm.
No fire alarms yet, but it's always a possibility with Sean Payton. You never know. Game day Sean is something to watch.
All right, Sean, thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks, bud.
No problem.
thank Sean for coming on the show. He's absolutely a great guy and a mentor to mine. He's done a lot for my sports media career. Now it's time for Look at the Details.
Look at the details. Oh, Lord. Look at the details. Oh, Lord.
The Saints need to make a big play here. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have pressure up his face. One of the few times that Ramczyk gets beat. See, he's right there. He gets beat, and Teddy's going to avoid the pressure, escape the pocket, buying time. Right now, no one's open. I can get a first down. It's just one of the few times Teddy's looking downfield, trying to make a play for his team. And you're going to see Ted Ginn right here find a hole and get open for what should be a big gain. Ball's a little high, but very catchable. Instead, Ted Ginn drops the ball, and it's an interception for the Cowboys. When your quarterback hasn't started in a long time and is making a play with his feet and a good pass, you have to come down with this ball. Ramczyk gets beat. Bridgewater makes a good throw. Interception. Marshawn Lattimore heard all the noise. He was giving up the most yards in the NFL by a corner. He came out and played one of the best receivers in the NFL and shut him down. Watch his feet here. Reading the hips. Amari Cooper's going to try to come in. Marshawn Lattimore is in perfect position to break up this football. What a play. Saints have the momentum right now. 1st and 10, starting to move the ball. Taysom Hill in the game. And I want you to watch this defensive end right here. This is who Taysom Hill is going to read. If he comes in and goes after Kamara, he's going to pull it. If he stays base, he's going to give it to Kamara. Instead, he flies in. He's going to tackle Kamara. He doesn't even have the ball. Look at this hole right here. Really good block right here by Jared Cook. Sealing the outside linebacker, Sean Lee. Really good block, and then Taysom Hill just makes a play. Watch this hit. Bam. Whole team's fired up about it. You saw Armstead right there. Puts Jared Cook in motion. Jared Cook's can come down, make a good block. Robert Quinn is going to run down to try to tackle Kamara. Taysom Hill makes the perfect read. And then that's just big boy football. Marvel character does it again. Should be a simple 2-3 yard gain, but instead, Mr. Alvin Kamara makes a play. Let's see how many missed tackles right here by the Dallas Cowboys. Or how many tackles AK breaks. 1, 2, perfect balance. 3, 4, 5, and finally brings him down. What an effort. Ted Ginn has been playing it safe, playing it smart, getting the ball out quickly to Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. But on 3rd down in the red zone, he needs to make a play. He tried to make a play in the first quarter, getting the ball out to Ted Ginn, but it was dropped and picked off. Here, the Cowboys are going to play a too-high safety look. The middle of the field is going to be wide open. Watch Jared Cook run a post route in the middle of the field. Cook is open right now. That's a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater instead is not going to look for Cook. He does not read the two high safeties. He looks for a second. Right now, he should throw the football. Instead, he's going to run, get hit. Should be a flag, but it shouldn't matter. Should be a touchdown to Jared Cook. 3rd down. Saints up 2. 150 to go in the game. Teddy Bridgewater absolutely cannot take a sack here. But the Cowboys come up with a fantastic scheme defensively. I want you to watch Jalen Smith here. He's going to wrap around to Teron Armstead's side. He's going to wrap around The Cowboys' defensive tackle is going to wrap around this way, and their outside linebacker is going to wrap around this way. It's just an absolutely beautiful scheme here by the Cowboys. They all look like they're rushing straight forward, right? Jalen Smith's going to wrap around to the edge. Their D tackle is going to wrap around this way, forcing one-on-one with Larry Wolford and their outside linebacker. And as expected, Larry Wolford gets beat. On the other side, they do not see Jalen Smith coming. That's a bad man not to see coming. Teddy Bridgewater's got to throw this football away right here. You got to get this football out. You cannot take a sack here. You cannot. Great scheme by the Cowboys. Great pressure. But you still need to get this football out. 2 seconds to go. Saints have been here before. Minnesota Miracle, Week 1 versus the Houston Texans. Saints fans are tired of big plays happening on the final seconds of the game. Saints playing 5 deep. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's going to line up over the number 3 receiver right here. And he's going to blitz. Great scheme by the Saints. Offensive lineman points out the defensive tackle. He's looking at him. Cam Jordan's going to pull this tackle outside. Leaves a big hole for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Just gets enough on him. Marcus Williams has been hearing the noise ever since the Minnesota Miracle. Right here. Comes up, reads the ball perfectly. Ball game. Welcome back. Now we're going to have our NFC South expert, Elliot Reeder, joining us. How you doing today, Elliot?
Pretty good.
Saints Bucks on Sunday. We're going to preview it a little bit. The Bucks are an inconsistent team, man.
Yep.
You know, they go on the road Thursday Night Football and beat the Panthers, but then they lose at home versus the Giants with a rookie quarterback, and then they go on the road and beat the Rams. What is this team?
I think they just follow in line with their quarterback. I think Jameis Winston, sometimes he looks like the next great thing, and then sometimes he looks like he shouldn't even be an NFL starter, and he's just really up and down. And I think the team kind of follows that, and like they have the talent to when Jameis Winston plays well, the team is good enough to beat a team like the Rams because they have so much talent there with Mike Evans and all that. But again, as you said, they're just really inconsistent.
The key matchup of the game, I think, is going to be Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore.
Yep.
They kind of have a rivalry a little bit. What do you expect out of that matchup?
I think it's going to be great back and forth heated game, and this is a division rivalry, and you know these are two players that like to go at, and I think the game a lot is going to depend on that. But I think Mike Evans is going to be able to get him some, but I think Marshawn Lattimore is also going to have a pick.
So Thomas, I expect this game, the Saints have to win this game. Is going to have multiple turnovers on Jameis Winston. He likes to give the ball away.
Sure.
What is your key to victories?
Key to victory is the Saints playing defense again. And I don't think they're going to give up 10 points like they did against the Cowboys. I'm going with like a 23-20 type matchup. But the defensive line stays dominant. The secondary improves once again. And Teddy makes just enough plays to get past the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, you know, it's going to be another great defensive game. The Saints have to stop the run, right? But they got to make Jameis Winston try to beat you. And when Jameis Winston tries to beat you, he's going to make mistakes. And that's how I think the Saints are going to score a lot this week, is off of interceptions, fumbles, you know, getting Saints in position to score. How do you see this game playing out?
I think the Saints, I think one thing they're going to get and that they're going to need to be able to win this game is what Alabama used to call the knot. That's going to be a non-offensive touchdown. I think the Saints are going to get one somewhere, whether it's in the return game or on a pick six or on a strip sack or something of that sort. I think they're going to get a non-offensive touchdown, and I think that's going to be kind of early in the game and kind of really swing the tempo. I think the Saints are going to win by about 10.
So, you know, just talk about this game. It's got a little bit of history. Last year, Week 1, the Saints lose to the Buccaneers. And then 2 years ago, when the Saints were really good, they lost Week 17 in an important game to Tampa Bay. This is a tough matchup for the Saints year in and year out. Why is that? Is it because of division, they know each other, or?
I mean, I think it's part of that. But I mean, you look at, if you really dive into Week 1, I think a lot of that was the Fitz magic. And so I think the in order for the Buccaneers to win, they're going to need sort of a Fitzmagic-esque performance from Jameis Winston, which he has the ability to do. But again, we've just seen him so inconsistent. But I think a lot of it, again, comes back to the quarterback play of the Buccaneers.
Talking about the quarterback play, Bruce Arians kind of a quarterback whisperer. He did it with Big Ben. He did it with Andrew Luck. He did it with Carson Palmer at the end of his career. And Jameis Winston last week looked pretty good. What do you think about Bruce Arians and his type of coaching?
I mean, I think it's just incredible. And, we talked about this a little bit before. He was put into an incredibly tough situation when he was brought in, when the front office basically said, Jameis Winston is our quarterback no matter what. No matter, whoever we bring in as head coach, they're just going to have to work with Jameis Winston. And so in order for Bruce Arians to come in and have this Buccaneers team that sometimes has looked very meleaguered, but to have them at 2-2 in the division race, and if they win this Sunday, they're going to be, kind of in the driver's seat. Yeah. They're going to be first in the driver's seat of this division. So for Arians to be having Jameis Winston at times looking like a top 10 quarterback, I think that just speaks to how good of a coach he is and how he can get the best out of his players.
We talked to Thomas about his keys to victories. What are your keys to victories?
I think, as I mentioned a little bit before, was getting a non-offensive touchdown, and I think that just really is going to help make the offense comfortable, getting Teddy Bridgewater comfortable. And I think, again, Teddy Bridgewater just hold on to the ball and don't turn the ball over. Have a clean game. Saints don't need him to throw for 350 yards. They just need him to come in, play well, complete 65, 70% of his passes, and don't turn the ball over.
So the Falcons have an important game this week versus the Texans, right?
Right.
So what do the Falcons need to do to kind of, that 1-3, people are talking about firing Quinn. Yep. What do the Falcons need to do to kind of shut out the noise and really get a win?
And I think part of it is kind of what, going back to last year with the injuries. This is a team, especially in their offensive line, they've had a ton of injuries this year, and the offensive line already wasn't playing that well. And against a Texans team with a guy like J.J. Watt, that's a dangerous scenario. But I think the Falcons have got to step it up defensively. Dan Quinn, that's what he was known for in Seattle, was defense. He was a defensive guy, and in Atlanta, he just really hasn't shown. There just hasn't been the reaping of those rewards of Quinn being a defensive coach. So I think the Falcons, it's time for that defense to start stepping up. And I think that's part of the reason why people are starting to say maybe Quinn isn't the guy. Not necessarily because they're losing some of the games, but just because this is year number 5. And he still hasn't been able to show incredible and measurable improvements on the defensive side of the ball.
Last week, I thought the Falcons would win because they were at home versus a Titans team who is inconsistent. But they just got flat out dominated for most of that game. And now they're going on the road to a Texans team who, quite frankly, has to win this game. What do you think about the Falcons-Texans matchup? You have any predictions for that?
I've got the Texans winning this game. You saw Deshaun Watson, his performances here lately. He's been getting it done, getting the job done, and that defense for the Texans has been dominating. And I just feel like Deshaun Watson and his mentality.
He's going to have a backup game. He struggled versus the Panthers last week. Just kind of a bounce back type game against the Falcons. Because the Falcons, as you said, have been struggling defensive wise. I feel like Deshaun Watson gets it done.
I think Thomas makes a great point about Watson, and he's a fantastic quarterback, one of the bright young quarterbacks in the league. Him, Mahomes, Mayfield, they're going to be carrying this league for the next 15 years, much as have Breeze and Brady and Manning the last 15 to 20 years. But again, the Falcons on the defensive side of the ball, the injury to Keanu Neal, they just made a trading away Duke Riley for Cyprian at the safety position. But I think just Deshaun Watson and that receiving core is going to be too much to handle. I think Trufant, I think he's going to be able to do decent against Nuke, but I think the other weapons on the outside for the Texans are going to be able to get it done. And I think it's going to be a back-and-forth game. I think you're going to see a lot of energy and emotion because I think both teams recognize how much of a must-win game this is because if the Falcons fall to 1-4, especially with the success that the Saints have been having without Drew Brees, I think the Falcons are going to be in a really tough position, but I think the Texans are going to pull it out late, 23-20.
I believe the Texans are going to beat the Falcons too. I think it's going to be a little bit high scoring than that. I think it's going to be around 30-20 where the Texans win by 10 points. But we also got another big talking point is Kyle Allen.
Yep.
Is 3-0 as a starter as a Panthers quarterback. Do you think the Panthers' failures, last year, at the end of last year, going basically 0-7, 0-6 to end the year, and then losing the first 2 games, was Cam Newton's fault?
I don't necessarily think it was Cam Newton's fault. I do think sometimes Newton tries to do too much, and he tries to go out and make the plays, and sometimes he gets himself in trouble instead of letting the game come to him. But I don't necessarily think it was Cam Newton's fault. I think there's definitely still a lot of faults on that roster, especially on the offensive line, and that's part of the reason why you're seeing Cam Newton get hurt so much, even though he does like to run the ball. I don't necessarily think it's Cam Newton's fault. I think what Kyle Allen's doing is a great story, but I still think the Panthers are better off long term with Cam Newton at quarterback necessarily than Kyle Allen. But I think Cam Newton, he's not a perfect quarterback, but I don't necessarily think that the struggles that they've had are all on him. I don't think he's free of blame. He's definitely made some mistakes, but I think he's definitely the Panthers' best long term option.
And you say, towards the end of last year, and how the struggles continued, but Cam Newton was injured.
He was. He's injured right now too.
Absolutely, and so that carries on. But Kyle Allen has done a tremendous job filling in for Cam Newton. But I feel like when Cam Newton comes back, he'll develop, and he'll be able to adapt.
Get his rhythm
to what's
back.
going on now.
So the Panthers got a tough one this week at home versus the Jacksonville Jaguars squad, who just seems motivated with Gardner. He's a character, man. You have any game predictions for this one?
I think this is going to be another very entertaining game. You have these two kind of just come out of nowhere quarterback stories, these young quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew, out of Mississippi, went to Washington State. Nobody was expecting him to be like the best rookie quarterback. Nobody was expecting that.
He's one of my favorite players in the league right now.
He's just such a character and just an entertainer. And I think he's very similar to what we were seeing from Baker Mayfield last year. I think he's just a great story. And I think one of the two quarterbacks, either Minshew or Allen, is going to kind of have a big letdown game. And I think it's going to be Allen is going to have a little bit of a letdown game. I think the Jaguars' defense is going to be able to make some plays. Their defense hasn't been as good as it was in 2017 when they made the run to the AFC Championship game. But I think their defense is going to come out motivated. They still have a lot of talent there. I think they're going to be able to force a few takeaways. And I've got the Jaguars 24-17.
I have the Jaguars winning this game as well, but it's going to be 27-20. Gardner Minshew is going to have a touchdown late to give the Jaguars the win. What do you have, Thomas?
I have the Jaguars winning. Gardner Minshew has been absolutely phenomenal in his performances, grabbing the whiskey bottle, smashing his hand, trying to get his red shirt in college, and just the energy he brings to that program, y'all. Leonard Fournette at running back, 225 yards last week. I see the Jaguars winning this one.
All right, now it's time for the best thing we saw on Twitter. I'm sorry, Elliot. I really am sorry, but we have to play it.
What's the letter? What's the letter? What's the letter?
The letter of the day is It's the letter of the day. It's the letter of the day. It's the letter. It's the letter. It's the letter of the day.
Welcome back. So the word of the day. Elliot, since we did that to you, what is your word of the day?
My word of the day is bounce back. In the NFL, it's a 16-game season. You got to be able to bounce back. You got to be able to put last week behind you. We always talk as quarterbacks, your most important pass is the next one. Is a team, your most important game is the next one. Because in the NFL, week 5, every game matters. Everybody's still alive in the postseason. So these teams, Falcons, Cowboys, whoever you want to point out on Twitter, for losing week 4 or whatever, that they got to be able to bounce back. They got to be able to put that behind them and just focus on next week.
So Saints, Bucks, 12 o'clock on Fox. Game predictions, Thomas.
I feel that Teddy Bridgewater, giving him comfortable throws week in and week out like they have done against the Seahawks, against the Cowboys like they did last week, defense stepping up, key. Marshawn Lattimore playing well, covering Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the NFL. And then Von Bell being around the ball, right place, right time, 3 fumble recoveries already this season. I feel like the defense is going to be there once again. Force, a touchdown that's not offensive, as Elliott said. And I feel like the key to victory is going to be just getting Teddy Bridgewater comfortable and the defense playing as well as it has been in recent weeks.
So you have the Saints over the Bucks?
Absolutely, 23-20.
I think sometimes we tend to overthink predictions, will this happen, will that happen? And I think sometimes you have to look at it simply as who is the better team. And I think the Saints are the better team. These are two teams both coming off of big highs last week, arguably two of the best wins of the entire NFL season, the Saints over the Cowboys and the Buccaneers over the Rams. But I think at the end of the day, the Saints are the better team. They both have had questions at the quarterback position, but I think the Saints have more talent around their quarterback. I think the Saints are going to get it done.
I have the Saints 27-21. I believe, like you said, they're going to have a turnover or a turnover that leads to a score that really puts them over the top of the Buccaneers. So now we have our bets. One thing that's going to happen, it's a guarantee. Last week, my guarantee was that Teddy Two Gloves and the Saints were going to win and that I would wear two gloves on the show. Now Marshawn Lattimore, no fly zone, is going to lock down Mike Evans to under 50 receiving yards.
Ooh, that's a big prediction.
It's a big one.
All right, any bets for y'all?
I'm going to go with, this might be a cop-out. I'm going to say the Dolphins are going to lose. Might be a cop-out, but, every week that I think is going to happen.
All right, what about you, Thomas?
The Patriots beating the Redskins by over 20 points.
Oh, man, I'll go over 30 with the Redskins, dude. Who gets to the number one pick, the Redskins or the Dolphins?
I tell you what, another team, the Bengals. There's a big late week game or late season game. Bengals play the Dolphins, I believe it is. That could be a battle for the number one overall seed. Loser of that game gets the number one overall seed. I saw somebody on Twitter said that they should flex that game to Sunday Night Football just so people can watch who's going to get the number one overall seed late in the season.
You believe that? I believe the Redskins have a chance at it.
Yeah.
Redskins, I don't see the Bengals as bad as the Dolphins. You got Andy Dalton. It's kind of...
Yeah, I think the Bengals' main problem is their offensive line, but I think ultimately the Dolphins are going to get the number one overall pick because I think they have the most motivation to go get it because I think they have the biggest need at the quarterback position, so they're going to try to go and get a Tua or a Herbert or a Fromm or an Eason. So I think they have the most motivation to go get the number one overall pick because, I think the Bengals can kind of sit there at 2 or 3 and get a Chase Young. The Broncos can do the same and get a Jerry Jeudy kind of thing, but I think the Dolphins are going to get it because they have the most motivation to do so.
I'm with Elliott on that. I feel like the Dolphins will get number one, but it's not just quarterback is their problem. The offensive line, the defense, receivers dropping wide open passes. It's just ridiculous.
Josh Rosen's not a bad quarterback.
Nope.
He's not. I'll take him on the Saints. So, well, that's it for the Poydras Street Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us.